you're new in town or just new to this whole podcast thing, you're tuning in to Lore by Night, the podcast that discusses all things vampiric with no fear of breaching the masquerade. In this episode, we're going to go through everything you need to know in order to create your own vampire in Vampire the Masquerade 20th Anniversary Edition, or V20 as the elders call it these days. Before we properly sink our teeth into tonight's episode, I wish to tell you what you will need in order to follow along with me to make your first kindred in V20. First and foremost, you will need a copy of the V20 core book, either as a physical or a PDF copy if you are a weirdo or allergic to books or something. If you are playing the game old school with the archaic devices known as pen and paper, you may have a friend or two who is willing to lend you their copy. But as more and more fledglings are seeking the likes of Discord and Roll20 to play, it is highly unlikely someone will just lend you a book from afar. The easiest place to buy a physical or digital copy of V20 and other supplement books is by going to drivethrurpg.com. Now, I'm going to presume that if you are here, you know a fair amount about VTM and have a basic understanding of how some, if not all, the clan mechanics. You may have seen online chronicles such as LA by Night by Geek and Sundry, Chicago by Night by Near Dark Studios, and Savage City by Caffeinated Conquests, or played Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, which led you here, or other online chronicles which in turn led you here anyway. As such, I won't go too in depth with the clan laws for now. Instead, I'll give a very brief overview of the playable clans in V20. The Assamites, who have recently adopted the term Banu Hakim, are silent virtuosos in assassination who collect blood to bring them closer to their maker. The Bruja, or Bruja, were once philosopher monarchs of an ancient civilization, but are now deadbeat rebels. The Ministry, once known as the followers of Set, adopt the idea that Set, the Egyptian god of the underworld, is their maker, and do what they can to manipulate those around them, whilst protecting their own strange artifacts. The Gangrel resemble the beasts associated with vampires more than any other clan. The Giovani is a strange, insular family who embrace only within their own kind. They practice necromancy whilst dictating global finances, something that they have been doing since the Renaissance. The La Sombra are inhumane nobles who are able to manipulate the darkness around them. Clan Malkavian are broken by madness, each one ranging from unhinged to batshit crazy. The Nosferatu are hideously disfigured upon their embrace, so they hide in sewers away from kine eyes. If you want to find out something, go and speak to one of them, as they hoard secrets. The Ravnos are described as gypsies by other kindred, but there is more to them than that, I assure you. They are powerful tricksters who can force the mind to see what really isn't there. The Toreadors enjoy every sensual pleasure that unlife has to offer them. They appear to like pretty fiends, but it is all terribly forced to make them seem as human as possible. The Shemitsi distance themselves from mortality as much as possible, for they are old-world lords of eldritch horror, as they are able to manipulate flesh and bone as if it was some grotesque putty. And finally, through their self-imposed entitlement and greed, the Ventrue are often the iron fist that rules a given city, imposing their own wills and traditions onto kindred society. V20 also offers players to embrace the role of the clan variants such as Old Clan Shemitsi, City Gangrel, and Dominate Malkavians. The clan anti-tributes are available as well, in addition to the 13 bloodlines such as the Barley, Salubri, and Gargoyles, all of which will be explored in future episodes. Once you have the core book, and any other source books you desire, you'll need a character sheet. DriveThruRPG doesn't easily provide PDF copies, so you'll have to look elsewhere to find an interactive PDF character sheet. For this episode, I'll be using the mrgon.rocksolidshells.com interactive sheet, but there are others available, should you wish to use a slightly different format. It should be noted that you cannot use the V5 character sheet when creating your V20 vampires, for reasons we will soon explore. With that preparation shenanigans biting the dust, one can now begin to create their V20 character. There is no system or dice roll to be made when determining your character's clan, unless you really want to, of course. You can choose whichever one you want to roleplay in your story. VTM uses the storyteller system, which encourages players to become one with their character, to embrace them, as it were. The kindred of the world of darkness, the universe in which VTM exists, usually do not embrace mortals willy-nilly, meaning that there is a reason as to why you were embraced by your sire. What sort of person were they in life? What did they do? How did they go about doing it? Where and when were they embraced? These are just some of the questions that should come to mind when building your character, as it is their life as Kain, a human, that will determine the stats and concepts. Starting at the top of the page, you should be able to fill most of these out by yourself. Name is obviously your character's name, be it their actual name or pseudonym. Player is obviously you, and if you have problems with that, well, go back to school. Chronicle is the name of the story you're playing in. For example, LA by Night or Follow Law by Night on Twitter by Night, for example. Concept is your character's notions. For example, a Tremere stage magician, Nosferatu hacker, or Ventrue CEO. The examples I just gave are stereotypes of those clans, yes, but there's nothing stopping you wanting to be a Brujar journalist or a toreador kickboxer. In many ways, these two weirder examples fit the archetypes rather nicely, providing you use a bit of imagination. Clan is whatever clan you were embraced in, including the clanless Kaitif or Caitiff. In V20, Finn Bloods are a purchasable flaw at character creation. Generation is how far or close your vampiric blood is to the mythic progenitor Cain. Vampires are one generation weaker than their sire. So, if your sire was a Generation 11 vampire, an Ancile, you would be Generation 12, a neonate, or fledgling, depending on when or where you embraced. In V20, you can play as any generation, other than Antediluvian, second generation, or first generation, which is Cain himself. Most sessions encourage players to be neonates, however, as each older generation becomes progressively more powerful and find it much easier to break the flow of the storyteller's game. Finally, there is your sire. Your character may not have known their sire, but this piece of information, or lack of thereof, helps to build your character's backstory. If your character is sireless, think how your character survived on their own up until the first session of gameplay. As for my example character, he is a 12th generation Nosferatu who goes by the name of Pink to the kindred who knows him. Why Pink? No one knows, except for Pink. He wants it remaining that way, for he hated his life as a human. Born and raised in a sheltered household, Pink would try to be as nice as possible to try and make some friends. He even took up piano lessons to try and get the girls. I know, how sad and pathetic. Unfortunately for him, he has a face that only a mother could love, and no matter what he did, what he said, he would always become the outcast. This made him the perfect candidate for Nosferatu Ancile Victor, who embraced him with a chance of starting over and being useful to the world. The underworld. Now an overflowing fountain of secrets, he sells stolen weapons of all sorts from his beat-up van, not afraid to pop a cap in someone's ass if he believes they are so much as thinking of double-crossing him. No one fucks with Pink. If you have filled out your sheet correctly, there should be 2 boxes left for you to complete. Nature and demeanor are very similar in definition, but are very different in how one would use them in-game, for they define you and your character and how they interact with the world. Demeanor is how you choose to present your character to the world, whilst nature is how they truly are. To use an extremely crass example, you may seem like the nicest person in the world to the public eye, but deep down you are a deranged psychopath who eats babies for breakfast without the smallest amount of remorse. But going back to the character creation process, both nature and demeanor splint off into many archetypes, each one providing different ways for players to regain willpower, a finite resource a player may use in a tricky situation, or to resist entering frenzy, given the right circumstances. There are lots to choose from, so I will let you to discover those for yourself. But to add this new information to Pink, it would make the most sense to me that his demeanor is capitalist, which is all about selling things, be it goods or secrets. In the case of Pink, it is both. This allows Pink to regain 1 point of willpower when a sale is made, be it physical, such as guns or hand grenades, or secret information or favours. As for his nature, Pink is very much a survivor. Yes, it would make good sense to give him the loner archetype, but the survivor is all about not letting others determine your fate, always getting up no matter how many beatings you take, be it physical, mental or emotional, so I feel this is a much better fit for Mr. Pink. Willpower is regained here when Pink survives a threatening situation through tenacity or when his counsel causes someone else to persist in spite of the opposition. Now that you have established some lore regarding your character, you should have an idea of what sort of person they are when you assign points into your attributes. How would they solve their problems? Fighting, thinking, or talking? How would they naturally interact with the world? The attribute section is made up of 3 categories: physical, mental, and social. You start by assigning 1 point in all the attributes. You then distribute 7 points into a primary attribute, 5 to a second attribute, and 3 dots to a tertiary group. If you decide to put 4 points in a particular attribute, you can choose to assign a specialty to it. However, some of the more grotesque looking clans, such as the Samedi and the Harbingers of Skulls, have no points in appearance and can never increase it. Pink is a Nosferatu, so his appearance is stuck at 0. Given he is a criminal who often negotiates with all sorts of people, with many a secret to bargain and collect, Pink's mental and social attributes take priority over physical. His mental attribute is the primary one, the social attribute is the secondary one, leaving the physical one for last. His intelligence is at 4, wits and perception are at 3 points. His social attributes have his manipulation at 4 and his charisma at 3. I remind you again that his appearance at 0 because he is an ugly Nosferatu. And his physical attributes, strength, dexterity and stamina, are all at 2. Dice rolls in VTM are usually made up of 1 attribute plus an ability, as there are many ways of demonstrating feats of strength and intelligence. Unless of course you're wanting to deadlift a donkey, for example, as that would just be pure strength. By my interpretation at least. The abilities are divided up into 3 sections. From left to right, you have talents, skills, and knowledges. Just like the attributes, abilities are prioritized in primary, secondary, and tertiary groups, with no skill getting more than 3 points at this point. No skill must have more than 3 points at this point. The primary group gets 13 points, secondary gets 9, and tertiary gets 7. If you put any points in craft, performance, or technology, you have to assign a specialty to it, which would mean that 1 dice is added to any roll where your specialty would apply. For example, if your character was an iPad expert and was attempting to repair their ghoul's iPad, you would gain an additional die when repairing it. The distribution of Pink's points are all geared towards his criminal lifestyle, his memory bank, and being able to use and sell his lethal explosive merchandise should the need arise. As such, I deemed it appropriate that his talents was the primary group, the skills the secondary group, and the knowledge is the tertiary group. In the talents abilities, his alertness is at 3, awareness at 1, his brawl is at 1, his intimidation at 2, and streetwise and subterfuge both have 3 points. For the skills group, he has 2 points in drive, 3 in firearms, 1 point in larceny and melee, and 2 points in stealth. Finally, in the knowledges abilities, computer and finance have 1, investigation has 2, politics also has 2 points, and occult has 1 point. I wish to enforce the idea once more that it is not a game like Dungeons & Dragons. You're trying not to build the strongest of soldiers or the most magical of wizards. Vampire the Masquerade is a social drama. Everybody has their own flaws, their merits, their strengths and their weaknesses. You're not trying to build the strongest or intelligent of characters. It's a social political drama, as previously stated. Everybody has their own song to sing, so don't try and max out all the stats just because you think you're going to win every fight, because then it becomes incredibly dull and boring to everybody else. So don't be a selfish prick. That particularly aggressive segue leads me onto the advantages section, which is where the character creation truly becomes unique. On the left pane is the disciplines panel, which are your blood-based mythical powers. Each character begins with 3 points to spend in your disciplines, to distribute how you please. You could put 1 point in 3, 2 in one, and 1 in the other, or dump all 3 in one discipline. It is entirely up to you. Each clan has their own 3 disciplines, but if you choose to play as a caitiff, you can choose any 3 disciplines you wish, providing it is approved by the storyteller. A caitiff with potence, celerity, and fortitude could easily break the game, as those 3 disciplines work very differently to how they would do in V5. It should also be noted that 1 point in every discipline offers 1 power, unlike V5 where you have to pick 1 or 2 to choose from. The one exception to this is that elder disciplines sometimes give you 1 or 2 powers to choose from, and they must be purchased each time you wish to use them. These are only available to kindred from generations 4 to 9, so that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9, just so that we're perfectly clear. It's not as varied as V5, yes, but it's a lot easier to understand and to get your head around. As a reminder, Pink is a Nosferatu, so his 3 disciplines are Obfuscate, Potence and Animalism. I don't think Pink would use the Animalism skill too much, which is all about communicating and commanding and summoning of animals, so for the time being I will ignore that discipline completely. Potence allows Pink to add so many dice to strength-based rolls. As Pink doesn't have that much strength, he has 2 points, I shall assign him 1 point of Potence just to give him that little bit of edge if things get a little bit too serious and stressful. Therefore, I shall add 2 points to the Obfuscate discipline, which is all about concealing yourself in the mind's eye, which is somewhat different to what you'd expect invisibility to be. After this, we move on to backgrounds, for which you have 5 points to spend. These should support the character concepts. A havenless Ravenos is unlikely to have lots of cash, for example, unless he just nicked it, but that's beside the point. For some Sabbat-focused chronicles, where characters are inherently more inhumane than kindred who pursue the path of humanity, they may be allowed 4 points to spend on their disciplines instead, providing the motion is approved by the storyteller first. Sabbat characters can only choose the Black Hand membership and ritual backgrounds, and caitiffs cannot purchase status at this point. Because Pink is a Generation 12 kindred, I have to put 1 point in Generation. Given that Pink is known to other kindred as someone who sells weapons and secrets, it would make sense to put 1 point in status. As such, I think this justifies him having 2 points in resources. After all, he has a van filled with all sorts of horrible weapons, so how did he get the money to acquire these things? Finally, I've given him a point in domain, which gives him somewhere comfy to sleep, or at least somewhere to sleep, because I imagine he could live in a sewer somewhere, somehow, away from prying eyes. Following all of this is the virtues section, which provides the moral backbone for characters and how they readily resist the temptations of the beast. They define how they resist frenzy, with older Cainites losing said virtues as they grow older. Conscience governs a character's sense of right and wrong. Self-control is how they maintain their composure and their hunger, whilst courage determines their gumption and their ability to withstand the dangers of fire and sunlight. Sabbat characters or elders usually choose the other options, conviction and instinct, as they follow one of the paths of enlightenment, each one requiring a certain number of conviction and instinct points. For characters pursuing the path of humanity, they start with 1 point in the 3 options and then 7 additional dots amongst the virtues as you see fit. But be careful, as they determine your character's humanity and willpower. Your humanity is conscience plus self-control, and your willpower is the same as your courage points. As for Pink, who is a criminal and all-round arsehole, I've put his conscience at 2 and his self-control at 4. And as I deem him to have grown a bit more mature and braver throughout the years as a Nosferatu, I have put 4 points in courage. As such, his willpower is also at 4, and his humanity is 6. For his conscience at 2, self-control is at 4, and 2 plus 4 is 6. Quick maths. We have almost finished creating your V20 kindred. The last thing that needs to be done is to spend your 15 freebie points on whatever you want. If you want to buy an out-of-clan discipline, come up with a good reason as to why your character would have learned them, providing that the storyteller allows it, of course. There are some things to keep in mind when spending your freebie points. Attributes is 5 per dot, Ability, Virtues, Humanity / Path is 2 per dot. Willpower and Background is 1 per dot. And Discipline is 7 per dot. These numbers change when you spend experience after each session. A new trait costs 3 dots. A new discipline costs 10. A new or existing necromancy, coldonic sorcery, or thaumaturgy path costs 7 points. A new attribute costs 4 times the current rating. To upgrade or purchase a clan discipline, it is 5 times the current rating. To upgrade or purchase an out-of-clan discipline, it's 7 times the current rating. Caitives have to spend 6 times the current rating to upgrade or purchase any discipline, as they are clanless, which is both a blessing and a curse. To increase a virtue, it is 2 times the current rating. To increase your humanity or path of enlightenment, it is 2 times the current rating. And to increase your willpower, it is many experience points you have in willpower to upgrade it. So, if you had 4 willpower points and you wanted to make it 5, you would need 4 XP to upgrade it. There is also the option of buying merits and flaws that make your character all the more unique, each one being physical, mental, social, or supernatural. Merits grant you special advantages that make you stand out from the rest of the kindred in your chronicle. Flaws are the exact opposite and worth adding to your character sheet. After all, no one is perfect. Each merit has its own point expenditure, and flaw adds a certain number of freebie points you can spend to make up of the things that you have lost. You can purchase as many merits as you can afford, but you can't have more than 7 points of flaws. Now then, let's add all of this new information to Pink's character sheet. Those who have been paying attention may have noticed I forgot to put anything in performance. I say forgot because I said that Pink was a piano player and tried to use his abilities on the ebonies and ivories to win over those of the opposite sex. So I have given him 3 points in performance, and because I've put a point in performance, I have to assign him a specialty, that specialty obviously being piano. I've also decided to add an additional point of potence, just to give him a bit more strength. Pink has also been given 1 point of willpower, so he now has a total of 5, as I wasn't too happy with him having only 4. I have also given him some merits and flaws, and they're some of my most favourite additions to Vampire the Masquerade 20th Anniversary Edition. I've given him the merits Bruiser, Open Road, and Useful Knowledge. As for his flaws, I've given him Impatient and Repelled by Crosses. I would read those out for you, but I think I should just leave those for you to discover. That being said, one of them is, quite frankly, extremely obvious what it means. Finally, there is the matter of your blood pool, which is the only resource determined by the use of a D10 at character creation. Roll it, and whatever it lands on is your starting blood for the session. Once you have finished adding freebie points and rolling your D10, you can finally say that you have made your first VTN V20 character. Yes, the book has all that you need to understand the character creation process, and more. But I have found it sometimes helps to have someone walk you through the process, rather than nagging your storyteller 100 times for them to get wound up for you because you can't understand anything. To keep updated, follow the Lore by Night VTM Twitter and Instagram pages to find out when we will upload each episode. You can also find out by subscribing to the YouTube channel and clicking on the little bell, as you will be immediately notified when the latest episode is live. Until next time, farewell.